We have Corey Geary with us here again this week. Follow along with what he does and what his team does. Head over to novationnation.com where he trains on how to do wholesaling and novation. And we're going to probably focus mostly on the wholesale piece of it here today. But head over to reimastermind.net and check out the past episode because we cover quite a bit on that episode. It's episode number 289. And but really appreciate you coming back, Corey.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I appreciate you having me back. It's an honor.
So I think a lot of our listeners, they already know what wholesaling is, and we're going to kind of dive a little deeper onto that and hopefully give them kind of a wholesaling 101. But before we do, though, I kind of want Novation is probably a new word to a lot of people's ears. So could you kind of break that down first?
Absolutely. So, with wholesaling, you're signing the contract to the investor buyer via an assignment. With novations, the legal terminology means replacement agreement. So you're replacing the AB contract where you have with the seller with the new BC contract you have with the end buyer. And this gives you the capability of selling these properties on the MLS to conventional finance buyers, conventional financing, FHA and VA alike. And so that's why you're able to capture such a bigger spread on novation deals versus wholesale, because you're selling to a retail buyer versus an investor. And so it's a great strategy when you're in more rural type markets, you don't have a lot of investor activity, and you have houses that are livable. And so now these days, well, about 8 out of every 10 contracts are novations for us because we try to novate every deal. We only do wholesaling if the house needs 100 grand worth of work, the kitchen's burned down or something, or the seller's in a real time crunch, because with novations, you do need a little additional time because you're going to be selling it on the MLS. Where in wholesaling, you can get that deal done fairly quick because you have a cash buyer on the other end. So as long as we have the time, the house is in livable condition, and the seller allows access, we're going to novate that deal, if that makes sense.
Sure. So let's start at the beginning here then. We said we're going to probably talk a little bit more about the wholesaling aspect of it. Where do we begin? I know a lot of people kind of get into wholesaling and real estate investing because frankly, let's be honest, a lot of people, it's been painted as a get rich quick solution. And I see you're laughing. I laugh at that too, but I mean, that's the honest, like how to get into real estate with no money down. Wholesaling is the answer typically.
Yeah.
Tell us the truth there. Bust a few myths.
So I can kind of agree to that comment. I mean, I got into wholesaling because I got burned pretty bad early in my journey. I started as a fix and flipper. I had a night job where I was working the casino. I was watching that show Flip or Flop, and my girlfriend at the time, she's like, "Why don't you flip a house so I can list it?" She was a part-time realtor. And I was like, she knew I had some money saved up. I was like, I don't know, why don't I flip a house? It seems easy enough. Take, 20 minutes, they make $80,000. Let's try this, right? And so I flipped my first house. I make 8 grand, took 6 months. On my third deal, though, I got burned pretty bad. I bought 4 houses all at once, and a contractor really burned us. And I had to basically re-wholesale these houses back to the wholesaler to sell them to me. And we lost about $250,000 on those deals. So, I mean, it was horrible. It reset me back to zero. And so I was kind of in that spot where I had no money. I didn't want to give up real estate. And then, you hear that exact thing you said about wholesaling, getting the real estate with no money. And so I was like, man, well, how do these wholesalers get deals? And I did a Google search and I found Sean Terry, and I went down that rabbit hole. And I would say it's not a get rich quick by any stretch of the measure. It takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get the business going, to make it happen. It took me 10 months to get my first wholesale deal. After I got the first deal, obviously it was like proof of concept. So I was able to, okay, I can go out and rinse and repeat what I did, and hopefully, make some money doing so. So it takes a lot of work, a lot of grit. And if you really want to scale the business, you do need money. Now, ideally, the money you're making off a couple contracts here and there, you want to reinvest it in the business. But it takes a lot of time, effort, and it's going to take some money, and you're going to have a lot of struggles along the way. It's not an easy path by any stretch of the measure. It's not how the gurus make it sound. Bar none, I've had a lot of lumps along in my journey, a lot of setbacks.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So you mentioned you lost a quarter million on the first. Was it the first deal,
The
first
third
couple
deal
deals?
into my fix and flip journey. Yeah, it
Yeah.
set me back to zero.
Well, let's be honest though. I mean, I know it was an expensive lesson, but what did you learn from that experience?
Well, a couple things. That's a great question. One, make sure you vet out your contractors. Make sure you're checking the ROC, the Register of Contractors. Make sure he's licensed. Talk to some of his previous clients. I didn't do any of that. He was a referral over to me, and I didn't do any vetting. I was still working my casino job, and basically trusted him right out of the gate. I started sending him money, and he was sending me pictures of the property being updated, which it wasn't our property, it was another property. And he kind of took us down a rabbit hole for a couple months without me doing any serious follow-up with them, because I just trusted him. And it was completely, he saw a mark on our head, and we were newbies, and it was dumb on my end. And now if I had a mentor in place, that probably wouldn't have happened. So I wish I had kind of seeked out the path of getting a mentor in place in the very beginning of my journey. I didn't. It took me getting, burned before I got a mentor in place, and me doing some really good due diligence on some, on the people I was trusting. And I didn't do that. Right. I thought it was like, okay, just give this guy money and he's going to go and do my properties, and it will be all good in the end of the day. And it was just a completely idiotic mistake on my part. I mean, why would you trust anybody with that much money without doing your due diligence on them, following up with them, holding them accountable? And I didn't do that. So it was a horrible mistake I made very early on my journey.
Sure. And then you mentioned that first deal, it took you 10 months to find that first deal.
First wholesale deal.
So
Yeah.
how
And
what lessons did you learn there? And I really needed I want to spend some time on this because I really need to emphasize
so
that it seems like that first deal is always the hardest.
It is, man. And it's because you just don't know what you don't know. And the biggest thing I think is I was trying to learn how to talk to these sellers, how the sales process works, how to get good follow up in my system. When you first start out, you don't really have your systems and processes in place. You don't have the sales skills that you need to talk to these sellers to lock the deals up. You probably don't have a buyer's list. And so, like, getting into it, it's very difficult. Your marketing, how do you structure your marketing? Are you consistent with your marketing? And all these things I didn't know how much about. Obviously I had bought a course now from Sean Terry. I went down that rabbit hole. I was trying to implement his course, but I didn't have a lot of consistency with the marketing. I didn't have good sales skills. And that was the reason why it took so long to lock my first deal up. It was a combination of all those things. But once I got that first deal, it took me 10 months. I think it came off a direct mail piece we're doing. We were doing a combination of direct mail and bandit signs. And, but it wasn't consistent direct mail. Would send out a batch here, would wait for phone calls to come in, maybe a month later, okay, phone call stopped, maybe a month and a half. Let's send out another batch. Let's see if we get. It was haphazardly the marketing we were doing, nothing consistent by any stretch of the measure. And so by the time we locked our first deal up, the good thing is that we were able to get some money into the business, my small little business that I had, to reinvest back into marketing and trying to get a more consistent lead flow. Because at the time I was just using the money I was making from the casino job to put into marketing. So at the very least, I had that. I got burned for that money, which was my life savings, my 401k loan that I took out, and my previous flip money that I had made. But I still had my job, and that was able to, it was a good job. That casino job was a 6-figure year job. So I was able to take that money that I was making and try to pay for marketing, pay for some systems. And so it was a slow burn getting started. And obviously consistency is key, and learning some good sales skills in the beginning would have been better. But we got there, and after 10 months, and I think my second deal, I think it came like a month later. It was like once you kind of crack that barrier, I don't know what it is. It's like the proof of concept is there. It's like, oh, this works. Okay, let's rinse and repeat what worked. How did we get this deal? Okay, let's rinse and repeat that. How did the conversation flow? And it just kind of that mental barrier you have to break through, I think, for a lot of people.
Oh, I definitely think you're onto something there. There's a mindset shift that happens where you almost need to convince yourself that it's possible.
Yes.
Once you get that first one, you realize that, hey, this actually works, or this actually is possible. The next ones seem to come at a better clip.
It's so true, man. You have to convince yourself that you can do it. You know it kind of works because you see other people doing it, but you're just not confident in yourself, right? That's like the biggest thing. And it's like, once you get that first deal, now you have confidence. Oh, wow, this does work. Okay. And we wholesaled that deal to the wholesaler that I was buying my fix and flips from before, which is great. And we wholesaled it to him. We made 10 grand. And I was like, oh, a little bit of ROI that came back into the business, and it was nice. And it was kind of like where that was the real foundation when we got started with wholesaling.
So one of the things that I think I want to take a second on too, to sidestep for a second, is the concept that you talked about building your buyers list. I hear time and time again the concept of find the deal and the money will follow. What do you think of that concept? Or
If
should you
you
spend Go
don't
ahead.
know how to source the buyer, then that concept is not true. So like just because you find a deal doesn't mean that the buyer's going to call your phone and say, "Hey, I want the deal." You have to know you have to know how to get that deal in front of the right buyers. You got to know the marketing aspect on the dispo end of the deal. If you don't know the marketing aspect piece of the dispositions in the business, just because you have a good deal, all that's going to do is sit there on your desk. Just because you have a deal on your desk doesn't mean that your phone's going to ring. So you have to get it in front of people. You have to know how to market it to people. You got to know where to find those people. Back then, my method was I would go and then scrape the local MLS here for all the cash buyers who did deals in that local area. So I know there's investors buying properties in that area, close them cash, and I was scraping the MLS and then skip tracing them or calling those realtors and then pitching the deal to those guys. So I know those guys would be interested in the deal that I just locked up in that area. That's where they play at. So that concept has some truth in it, but it's not. It's just a piece of the puzzle, right?
Right. Yeah, I've been pushing the concept that you should probably be putting as much time and effort into developing your buyers list, getting out there and networking, joining your local RIA, doing all of these
100%.
different things in addition to the standard marketing. Because like you said, if you don't have an exit or a way to take care of the disposition, I mean, you could then what?
Then what? And 100% in the beginning of your journey, I think that's imperative that what you just said. You want to be out there networking with people, going to local RIAs, talking to investors alike, talking to other wholesalers. Like I said, that first deal, I ended up wholesaling that to the wholesaler who I was buying deals from. So like I had that relationship. So I was able to call him and say, "Hey, Chris," his name was Chris. I was like, "I got this deal at this X number. What do you think?" And he looked at it and he goes like, "Yeah, man, I'll give you 10 grand for it." So I had that relationship already with him. So in the beginning, to really kind of fast track your success, getting out there and networking is critical. Critical.
Yeah. You also mentioned the importance of mentorship. What have you ever sat down and wondered, like, if you would have had the proper mentorship or what you know now back then, like how different would have been that first deal?
Absolutely, because it would have fast tracked me that first probably 10 months and then also obviously not getting burned in the beginning of my journey. It took me getting a couple lumps on my head before I was like, all right, maybe I first should pay for mentorship. And I attribute my success now completely to mentorships and masterminds, 100%, because my superpower now is copy and paste. I don't try to reinvent the wheel. If somebody's already done it and they're successful at that particular strategy. I learn it from them. I come home and I copy and paste it. And it's so much easier trying to just figure it out on your own. If you're out there just figuring it out on your own, yeah, you might get to where you want to go, but it's going to take you a lot longer to get there. And you're going to make a lot more mistakes. You're going to lose a lot more money. So what's better? You making all those mistakes and losing money and taking more time. Time is money too. Or just paying somebody or paying to be a part of a group to help fast track you to where you need to go. And so my whole my success is strictly because of masterminds and mentorship. I mean, down to my Novation strategy that I teach now. When I first learned about that strategy, it was a mastermind I was out in Florida at, and it was a wholesaler mastermind. And we're out there and people were talking about their businesses. And one guy had just talked about Novations and half his business model was built off of it. And I'm like, what is that? And I inquired deeper about it. And then I went out there and paid people who were doing it to teach me what they were doing. And I had talked to like 4 or 5 different people, figured out what they're doing, compilated my own style because I wanted to do it nationwide. And then we did it and I learned a lot of other, of course, you're going to still learn lessons by doing the process. You're going to learn your own lessons, but I mean, mentorship is imperative, man. I mean, I've probably spent somewhere in the realms of $250,000 on mentorship and masterminds in my real estate journey so far. And I'm always looking for new groups to join and ways to grow. And I mean, it's absolutely the reason why I'm at where I'm at now.
Well, and I need to point out the fact that and I've mentioned it before, for some reason, we have a hard time as a society seeing mentorship and masterminds and getting some assistance. It's a better investment. And I'm going to keep calling it an investment because that's what it actually is. It's something that is going to pay a greater ROI than any other property we probably can invest in.
Mm-hmm. 120%.
So you mentioned a mastermind. You have one yourself, Wholesaling.com for your mastermind. Can you talk a little bit about, like, for those who haven't participated in a mastermind, what would they expect? What should they expect when they join something like this?
So you have different types of masterminds, different levels of masterminds. You got the in-person mastermind where you go once a quarter to meet up at some exotic location. Those masterminds tend to be a little bit more expensive. Anywhere from, it could be anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 a year for those type of masterminds. And then the mastermind I run is a virtual mastermind. So obviously the cost is not $50,000 a year for my mastermind because it's a virtual mastermind. And we have 35 members in the group now. We get on weekly Zoom calls. We strategize about one topic in the business that we are doing. So we teach in our mastermind, how to do nationwide wholesaling and novation deal making with PPC as your main marketing strategy. So it was built on what made my business successful and what I'm doing to get, great money now. And we have a lot of killers in the group, and it's great because some of these guys, they teach me stuff, and it's awesome. But the foundation is the 7-figure virtual nationwide wholesaling and novation deal making with PPC as your main marketing strategy. And you get, obviously we get direct access to me and my team. We JV deals with you. You get part of a Facebook group, and we're meeting every single week. So it's a great little group that we got going on, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. And for those who might balk at kind of paying for something like this, you definitely get what you pay for when it comes to kind of a mastermind. There's something about that skin in the game that brings everybody's A game when they come to this. Everybody is looking for that ROI at that point. You just get far better participation than some masterminds that I've been a part of that frankly were free, because now you're just getting everybody and anyone. There's no level of commitment.
It's 100% correct. You give value to something you're paying for, and that's everything in life. If you're paying for what you're getting, then you're gonna treat it with value. Or if you just receive it for free, most people, when they receive information for free, they don't implement is the biggest issue. So
Right. Yeah. So, when you did your first wholesaling deal, you talked about postcards, yellow letters, and bandit signs.
and it's signs, yeah.
And now you're talking about PPC. Is PPC your preferred method now, or do you
It's our
still do
preferred.
some of the other?
No, well, we do a little bit of cold calling, and then it's probably like 80-20, 20% cold calling, 80% PPC, but that is our main form of marketing. The main reason why is because PPC is infinitely scalable. And that's what I love about it. And you can turn it on and off in any market you want. We'll give an example with like cold calling or even direct mail. You got to pull new data. You get to skip trace that data. You got to hammer that data with new marketing pieces. You get on a consistent monthly basis or bi-weekly or whatever you got your calendar on. And then, if you're doing cold calling, you go to a new market, you got to hire new cold callers, put them on there, expand your dialer or whatever it may be. And scaling that model is difficult. Is it possible? Yes, of course. And there's a lot of people who do it, but with PPC, I just go on there and a few clicks of a button, maybe adjusting my budget, and I'm literally done. And it automatically starts targeting that area, and I'm able to drive leads in from that area, and I can increase the lead flow just by increasing my budget. So it's at the push of a button. So, and that's what I love about PPC. It's infinitely scalable. If I don't want marketing for a certain period of time, if I want to like maybe scale it down, I just scale the budget down so I can tweak and adjust what I'm spending very easily. And digital marketing, it's the future. And I feel like that's the way our whole society is going. And so if you're not learning some form of digital marketing, at some point, you're going to be left behind, in my opinion. So it's just a great way to drive leads. And let me touch on this. And when we do cold calling, I average about 70 leads per contract. On PPC, I average anywhere from 12 to 15 leads per contract, because when we're cold calling, it's guerrilla marketing. You're reaching out to them. Hey, do you want to sell your house? You're reaching out to all these sellers, and most of them, are like, yeah, just give me an offer, or yeah, if you give me the right price, I might be interested in selling. So it's like you're going through a lot more dirt to get your gold. Where in PPC, these people are reaching out to us. They raised their hand. They're looking to find us, and so they enter their information through a web form, or maybe they're calling us. These sellers really genuinely want to sell, and they usually have a lot more motivation than what you have with like telecommunication type marketing.
So, one of the things that I thought was interesting before we hit record is that you manage your own PPC,
I do.
pay per click. Don't run into a lot of, let's just be honest, a lot of realtors and real estate investors were a bit behind when it comes to technology. What made you decide to handle this piece of it yourself?
That's a very good question, because in the beginning, when I decided that I wanted to do PPC, I outsourced it. And I went through three different servicing agencies where it was costing me an arm and a leg, because not only my cost per conversion was anywhere from $300 to $600 cost per lead, then you have to pay the marketing company to manage it. And so like, I can remember one company specifically, it was costing me around 10K every quarter for them to even touch my account. And then now when they're touching my account, I'm getting leads at like $500 cost per lead. It was just bleeding me. Were we getting an ROI? Yeah, we were getting deals, but it was so expensive. I got to the point where I was so frustrated. As like, look, I need to learn how to fish myself. I need to learn how to do this if I really want to be successful at scaling this and keeping it consistent and having a great ROI out of it. So I made the decision to bring it in-house. And it's not that difficult. I am not a techie guy by any stretch of the measure. And I think it's more of a mindset thing. People are afraid of it because it is tech, but it is not hard. Once you get your campaigns built out in there, it's as simple as managing it weekly, where you go in there and look for some negative keywords to get out of there, to exclude, and then you look at how your ad copy's doing, and maybe change an ad copy around for kill the losing ad copy, because you're always split testing new ad copy, and it takes me 30 minutes to 45 minutes a week to manage it, and it is not difficult at all. And I just basically, the way I teach it, people just go, I teach them what I'm doing on my account, and they just copy and paste it. They copy and paste it. You don't have to be a techie guy. You fill out somewhat similar ad copy, similar keywords, and then turn it on. And then we're going to manage it and see how it does, and just figure out what we can tweak as we move along. You don't have to be a techie guy to do PPC. Just find somebody who's doing it, and copy and paste what they're doing. It's almost as simple as that. And there's a few guys out there teaching PPC at a good high level, not just me, but that would be my advice there. But you don't have to be a techie guy to run PPC.
Yeah. So do you just do pay-per-click? And so we're talking about like search engines when we say pay-per-click, but are you doing any kind of ads with Facebook, Twitter, any of the social medias?
I'm not. We've tried Facebook a few times. We had a little success with Facebook, but I find that the lead quality is so much better on Google PPC versus Facebook. Facebook, you get leads, but the leads end up being about it's like cold calling. They end up being around 70 to 90 leads per contract, because these people are not really reaching out to you. What they're doing, they're scrolling through their feed, and then they see your ad and they go, let me click on that and see what that's about. And they might enter their information because maybe they are thinking about selling their property, but it's not the same quality as somebody coming out and searching for you. And that's what PPC really is. I mean, somebody went on Google and typed in, I want to sell my house now. And so those guys are more motivated than someone who's just scrolling through a feed and going, oh, so you'll still get deals out of your Facebook advertising, but it's not the same quality. And so I decided, we did Facebook for a while. I was getting some ROI out of it, but I was like, you know what? My ROI is best, or my money is best allocated towards PPC, because I just get a better ROI out of it.
Sure. Yeah, I've been toying with the concept myself lately regarding how to handle this, and I keep coming back to the concept that pretty much exactly what you're saying is regarding pay-per-click on the front end, drive traffic to a site where it could maybe trigger a Facebook pixel for follow-up.
That's the perfect way to do it. Right. Retargeting is how you use Facebook. And we have a retargeting pixel on ours. And that way, because they came to you, they're a potential lead. They might have backed out because, I don't know, maybe they're busy that day. Maybe their kids came up to them and pulled them away from the computer. But then now they're going to go back and they're going to go on Facebook, and then you're retargeting them. Those are the ones that you want to capture off Facebook. 100%.
Sure. So, let's say somebody wanted to do pay-per-click, and that first term or two that what could you give them a kind of like something actionable? Like, what could they do to target like just a simple one phrase or two phrases that to experiment with, if you will?
Absolutely. And what I did, a lot of what I did, it was obviously copy and paste, right? You can go on Google and type in "we buy houses," and you can see what all your competitors' ad copy looks like. You don't even have to click on their ad copy, right? You don't have to cost them money, but you can see what they're putting in their ad copy. So you pick out a couple terms: "we buy houses," "sell my house fast," "companies that buy houses." That's a great one. We're now using "online house buyer." So these are a couple keywords you could put in there. And then you're gonna have to create out some ad copy. To get ideas for the ad copy, go Google it and then see what your competitors are doing. Oh, we buy houses fast. We close quick. No all cash, no fees. Just some basic ad copy there. And then you attach that ad copy to the keyword, and that's basically it. Now, the best advice I could give is let Google do what Google's good at. And this is where most of the servicing agency companies do it wrong. They try to control the cost per click. Don't control the cost per click. Let Google do what they're good at and do what's called maximize conversions. This allows Google to basically control the cost per click for you based off trying to get you that conversion. And it also allows Google to show your ads to a lookalike audience. You're letting it work on your behalf. So anytime you restrict Google, the more your cost is going to be. And this is what these servicing agencies don't understand. So if you restrict it to the keyword, it's going to cost you more. If you restrict it on the geographical location, it's going to cost you more. So you just got to be careful, on how much you restrict it. Let Google do what it's good at. And that, if you're trying to control the cost per click, you got to go in there every single day, look at all the different keywords. That's another thing. Having 500 keywords in there to manage because you're trying to control the cost per click on each one is brain damage. No, just have 10 keywords and do maximize conversions and let Google run with it. And then all you got to manage then is the negative keyword set. So basically, you're telling Google in the back end who not to show your ad copy to. That's it. And then Google is going to run. And that's how you bring that cost down tremendously. Let Google do what it's good at. Don't restrict it. And so that was the number one thing I learned about Google. Yeah. And the harder you make it, the more your cost is going to be and the more work it's going to be for you. We streamline the process very simply. I mean, I like the old saying, keep it simple, stupid, right? And that's what I do with Google. I keep it very simple. I let Google do what it's good at because Google has over 2,000 data points in every single person in the United States. They're like Big Brother. They know when a homeowner is thinking about selling before they even know it, just because of some of their search history, some of their, their activity that they're doing. And so that's what we do, maximize conversions. Don't control the geographical location. Don't try to control the keywords too much, and let Google do what it's good at. Let it learn. It will learn. And especially if you have your pixel connected to your website, which you want to do where you're tracking your conversions, Google will learn what kind of behavior is going on with your conversions with these leads. And that's how it learns to know what your lookalike audience is going to be, is through the conversion tracking. And that's one of the key things to say, make sure, and I don't even know how to set up a conversion tracking. I pay someone to do that part. They go into the website and they put the little pixel in there. I'm sure it's probably fairly easy if you're very good at like WordPress and that's what kind of website you have. But I pay a VA, $20. He'll go in there and set it up, make sure it's working right in my Google account. Okay, now our conversion tracking is working. Perfect. That's the most important piece. Now we can do maximized conversions for Google can learn what my lookalike audience is. Now we're going to only do our keywords broad match. Don't restrict it with exact match or phrase match because now you're restricting Google. Do broad match. Let Google learn with broad match to who your lookalike audience is and control Google through the negative keywords to not to show your ads to. And that just comes through time. We all obviously I have a pretty robust negative keyword list now. We give that to all our students, but you can build your own as you're moving along there. Obviously, if you're targeting we buy houses and someone types in we buy insulin strips or I want to sell my car, well, make sure to go in there and negative out that term. And then Google will never show your ad copy again to that person who types in that search term.
Well, I would imagine this would be a way for us to thread that needle too, to kind of not have to compete price wise, because pay per click, it's kind of an auction, if you will, when it comes to this. So we kind of want to thread that needle a little bit regarding, so you're not competing against every realtor in your town too.
Correct.
Yeah.
And let Google do what it's good at, because your competition is trying to control Google. And that's what I love. That's the way everyone teaches it. Hey, control your cost per click. Do exact match keywords. Target your certain zip codes that you want to. Man, I'm telling you, your cost per conversion is gonna be like $500-$600, and because it's an auction, and the way Google's algorithm plays the auction game, and so yeah,
right. So, I can't agree with you more, especially regarding, I used a service at one point too, trying to get somebody to handle this pay-per-click for me. And it was a learning experience as well, because first of all, they never worked with a real estate investor before. So
yeah.
the only experience they had was realtors, and man, it was just a disaster. It was really bad.
Usually the stories I hear. Let me touch on one more thing why I love Google too, is that in Google, we don't target distress, right? It's basically everybody who wants to sell a house. So, and when you're doing cold calling or direct mail, you're pulling distress lists. A lot of these houses are in pretty bad shape. Where in Google, we get everyone under the sun who wants to sell. And what we love about that is these good livable houses, they don't have to be updated, but they have to be, livable. Those are perfect prospects for novations. So I'd say about 80% of my leads that come in through Google are good prospects for Novations. And so it meshes well with the model that we do with the Novations. And so that's why I also love Google, is because it's every seller. It's everybody who's
Right.
thinking about selling. And it doesn't have to be a distressed seller, somebody who's, behind in their taxes and the house needs $100,000 remodel, and they're in foreclosure and all these other distress points, and that's how you usually target your telecommunication marketing. And that's why you get so many bad houses with so many title problems too. When you target distress, you're going to have a lot more title problems issues that you're going to have to fix on the back end. And when you're doing Google, it's not the same.
Yeah, and we could spend a whole another half hour talking about your Novation process, because
Absolutely.
that frankly is just fascinating how you fell into that niche and how that all works. In fact, I'm going to point everybody back to that last episode that we did, and that we kind of dived a little deeper on that piece of it. But I'm hoping that you'll come back and we could spend more time on Novation again, because
Yeah.
I think it's a concept that I think a lot of people should really consider. And it's been honestly a crack I've nut I've been trying to crack for a while, that concept, because it's really appealing. Because I'm sure, especially with the wholesaling, we talked about disposition before, but having additional avenues available to you, like Novation, is, the more you have those arrows in your backpack, the better off you're going to be.
100%. Don't be a one-trick pony. Learn multiple exit strategies. Obviously, Novation is not the only one. You got sub two, seller financing, lease options. There's just so many ways to skin the cat in real estate, which is why I love real estate, right? Find your
Right.
niche, tackle it, and don't be just one-trick pony pitching cash all the time. Like, oh yeah, wholesale, wholesale, wholesale. No, there's other options, guys. There's other options.
Well, Corey, before I let you go, I want to point everybody to novationnation.com. I'll make sure to have that link in the show notes. So if you're in your podcasting app, swipe right and check that out. There should be an easy clickable link there for you. But Corey, is there a question or concept you wish we would have covered here today?
The only concepts, I guess, maybe is like what is like one of the downfalls of doing novations, I guess. And I would say on the downfall for novations is the cash conversion cycle. So, and what I mean by that is when you're wholesaling, your cash conversion cycle can be pretty quick. It can be, anywhere from 2 weeks to a month before you see money back in the business. If you're going to do novations, make sure you do have a little bit of money in the bank, because your cash conversion cycle goes out a little bit longer, because you're listing it on the MLS, and it could take 2 to 3 months before that deal closes and comes back in the bank. So be very cognizant about that. If you're going to tackle novations, your cash conversion cycle gets extended out a little bit.
Sure. No, well, I appreciate it, Corey. I hope we don't take too much of a break like we did this last time. You're always welcome back. And again, it's novationnation.com. Really appreciate your time, Corey.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jack. Appreciate it.